So a couple of days ago, I was scrolling through my newsfeed on Instagram, minding my business, until I came across this post by On3. Now, they were ranking their top 5 SEC quarterbacks for this season. And listen, I understand that everybody is entitled to have their own opinion. But whoever made this list for On3, please stop. Just stop. This list is just so disrespectful on so many levels. Jackson Dart is at number 5, and he hasn't even taken a single snap of meaningful football for Ole Miss. And there's a legitimate chance that he may not even be the week 1 starter for Ole Miss because he's locked in a legitimate quarterback battle with Luke Altmaier. And then Spencer Rattler is at number 2 with a 97 overall? Listen, I love Spencer Rattler. I'm rooting for Spencer Rattler to succeed with South Carolina. I felt like he was done wrong by Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. But there's no way you can tell me that Spencer Rattler is the second best quarterback in the SEC, better than Will Levis or KJ Jefferson. This list is just so disrespectful. So this motivated me to make my own top 5 SEC quarterback rankings going into the 2022 college football season. Now, I know that a good amount of you guys are going to disagree with me, but at least this list is going to be a little bit better than what I just saw made by On3, because this list is embarrassing in my opinion. So let's start off at number 5. I have Mississippi State quarterback Will Rogers. Will Rogers was a really good quarterback last season. As a matter of fact, you probably could say that he is the most underrated quarterback in this conference going into this season. He threw 36 touchdowns to only 9 interceptions and completed 73.9% of his passes, along with throwing for 4,739 passing yards and Mike Leach's air raid offense. Now this season, Mississippi State does have some question marks when it comes to their wide receiver core. They're going to have some guys who need to step up, but you do have a really good offensive line. So I think that Will Rogers at the moment is the 5th best quarterback in the SEC. Coming in at number 4, I have KJ Jefferson, Arkansas quarterback who's coming off a really fantastic season. Last year was his first year starting at quarterback for the Razorbacks, and he was really impressive. He had only 4 interceptions, completed 67% of his passes, and had 21 touchdowns. Not only that, but he was a really good runner when he decided to tuck the football. He had 6 touchdowns and 664 rushing yards on the ground for Arkansas in 2021. He was one of the best dual-threat quarterbacks in college football. Now, you look at him going into this season, yes, Arkansas does have some uncertainty at the wide receiver position outside of Oklahoma transfer Jaden Hazelwood. You need some players to step up. However, Arkansas does have a good amount of talent in the wide receiver room. It's just that we don't know who's going to come out and produce for the Razorbacks this year. But for KJ Jefferson, if he continues to improve as a passer, he's going to end up probably being a dark horse Heisman candidate this year because he's that good. On top of that, he has phenomenal size. You're pretty much looking at somebody who should be a NFL prospect come the 2024 NFL draft when him and Caleb Williams decide to declare. He's kind of built like Cam Newton in a sense. He's 6'5", 230, 240? He's a freight. And he was really efficient with the football. He didn't have too many turnovers, although he did have some areas of his game, such as his accuracy, that was a little bit spotty at times. Overall, he was really good for the Razorbacks in his first season starting at Arkansas. And we can only expect for him to continue to develop as a passer going into this season. So he comes in at number 4 for me. At number 3, we have Will Levis. Now, Will Levis was pretty solid last year for Kentucky. He has a strong arm. He has a really good prototypical size that you like to see out of a NFL draft prospect at the quarterback position. Really good intangibles for the position. He's a good athlete. He can extend plays. He can also pick up yards with the ground. He's way more athletic than what a lot of people give him credit for. He reminds me a lot of Josh Allen. Now, he had 24 touchdowns and 13 interceptions, so he has to lower that turnover number down. But he throws a pretty nice deep ball. And on top of that, he also contributed on the ground game for the Wildcats with 9 touchdowns and 376 rushing yards. He also threw for 2,876 passing yards through the air. So Will Levis is the third best quarterback in the SEC. Me and On3 so far, we agree with who the third and fourth quarterbacks are in this conference. However, when you look at number 2, and this may be the most disrespectful of them all, that On3 decided to just leave off their list. And that is Tennessee Vols quarterback Hendon Hooker. If you guys been following the JT Sports podcast over the course of this offseason, you guys know what our mantra is over here. Hendon Hooker for Heisman. Either he wins it or nobody else does. I cannot believe that On3 left Hendon Hooker off their top 5. Hendon Hooker was one of the most efficient quarterbacks in college football last year. 31 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions while completing 68.2% of his passes. On3, what are you doing? What are you doing? How can you leave off Hendon Hooker, man? Hendon Hooker is the sole reason why so many people are so hyped about what Tennessee can do this season. He's a dark horse Heisman contender. And you don't even think that he's better than Jackson Dart? Come on, On3. It's just so disrespectful. You guys don't know how mad it made me that On3 left Hendon Hooker off their list. And you look at the wide receivers that he's going to be throwing to this year. You have Cedric Tillman, who's coming back, who is one of the best receivers in the SEC this year. You have USC transfer, Bro McCoy. And then you have Josh Heupel there. Like, this offense is going to be fantastic this season. On top of that, Tennessee is going to have a very good offensive line. Hendon Hooker is really accurate. Now, he may not have the arm that Will Levis or Spencer Rattler have, but he is really accurate when it comes to throwing the football short and intermediate. Now, his deep ball accuracy probably could use a little bit of improvement. But other than that, this is the second best quarterback in the SEC, in my opinion. On top of that, he is a really good runner. He had 5 touchdowns and 620 rushing yards last season on the ground for Tennessee. This guy is Tennessee football at the moment. And if it wasn't for Hendon Hooker, I don't think many of us would be as high on Tennessee football going into this year without him. Because he was sensational. And remind you that he didn't even start right away for Tennessee. So for Hendon Hooker, the fact that he is continuing to get so much disrespect is beyond me. How do people not recognize how good Hendon Hooker is? It's crazy, because there's no way that you can watch the Tennessee Vols game last season and not be amazed by Hendon Hooker. And they put Spencer Rattler and Jackson Dart over him? If Ole Miss and South Carolina had to choose between their current quarterbacks and Hendon Hooker, I'm pretty sure they would be taking Hendon Hooker. He's so underrated, man. It really hurts my soul on the Hendon Hooker disrespect. More people need to put some respect on Hendon Hooker's name. I'm tired of seeing him being overlooked. I'm tired of seeing him not being on these top 5 quarterback rankings. Like, I question, were some people even watching SEC football last year? This dude was sensational. And at number 1, we have the Heisman Trophy winner from last year, Bryce Young. Don't really have to say too much. Bryce Young kind of carried Alabama football on his back. We already know that last year wasn't the most talented Alabama team that we have seen under Nick Saban. But for some reason, they were able to find a way to get to national championship. And Bryce Young was a large reason for that. Not only that, but they pulled off the upset against Georgia in the SEC championship game. Because remember, a lot of people other than Alabama fans thought that Georgia was going to beat Alabama and they were going to beat them comfortably. Not only did people think that Bama was going to lose to Georgia, but there was a lot of people out there who thought that Georgia was going to beat Alabama by at least 2 scores or more. And the large reason why they were able to prove a lot of people wrong in that SEC championship game was because of the performance by Bryce Young. And even then in the college football playoffs, despite being down at one point 2 of his best receivers, the guy still showed a lot of fight. He was still making plays. Bryce Young is the best quarterback in the SEC, probably the best quarterback in college football. Some people will argue that with CJ Stroud, and I wouldn't get mad at you for that. But Bryce Young, we already know, not too much needs to be said. So this is my list of the top 5 quarterbacks in the SEC going into the 2022 college football season. Give me your thoughts down in the comment section down below on my rankings. Who's too high? Who's too low? Who got left off? Who should be on? You could say Anthony Richardson, but Anthony Richardson had a small sample size last year. He has a lot that he has to prove this year to us, even though I do think that he's going to end up being really good. The sample size was just too low for him to be on this list. So make sure that if you're listening to this on podcast, that you go ahead and leave a 5-star review. If you're listening to this on YouTube, make sure that you check out the JT Sports Podcast, available on all podcasting platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts from. The JT Sports Podcast is available.